The first time Pikachu met Ash, the world felt too big and too loud for either of them. Ash arrived with a knapsack full of hope and a map that promised more than it could ever contain. Pikachu arrived with cheeks that hummed like a secret and a stubbornness that would not be tamed. They were both smaller than the stories that would later be told about them, Ash with his earnest, unpolished courage, Pikachu with a spark that flared when it laughed and burned when it was afraid. Their meeting was awkward and electric, a refusal to be contained, a refusal to obey, and then, slowly, the first fragile thread of trust. At first, Pikachu kept its distance. It did not like the idea of a Pokeball. The thought of being closed away made its fur bristle. Ash learned to sit on the ground and be patient, to let silence do the work that words could not. He learned to share berries without reaching, to offer warmth without pressing. Pikachu learned that Ash's hands could be gentle and that his voice, when it did not demand, could be a harbor. Their bond grew in small things, a shared shelter in a sudden storm, a quiet watch through a night of strange sounds, a single, perfectly timed thunderbolt that saved them both from a falling tree. Those moments braided them together more tightly than any promise. Travel taught them both how to be brave in different ways. Pikachu discovered the world's textures, the rough bark of ancient trees, the slick skin of river stones, the metallic tang of a city night. It learned to read the moods of other Pokémon, the slow, patient wisdom of a sleeping Snorlax, the quicksilver fear of a wild Rattata, the proud, careful stance of a seasoned Charizard. Pikachu's electricity was a language. A soft crackle could mean curiosity, a bright flash could mean warning, a steady hum could mean comfort. With Ash, Pikachu learned to shape that language into strategy. They learned to fight not for glory but for protection, to choose battles that mattered and to walk away from those that did not. Their victories were never simple. Each gym, each rival, each new region brought tests that were as much about character as they were about power. Pikachu faced opponents who were bigger, faster, and more practiced. It learned to turn disadvantage into advantage, to use the terrain, to bait and feint, to time a thunderbolt so that it struck at the precise moment an enemy's guard dropped. But the most important lessons were not tactical. Pikachu learned restraint, how to hold back enough charge so that a friend would not be harmed, how to conserve energy for the long road ahead, how to trust that Ash's plans, even when clumsy, came from a place of care. Friendship became the true currency. Along the way they gathered companions who were not trophies but family, a loyal Brock who taught them about food and patience, a spirited Misty who argued and laughed in equal measure, and countless Pokémon who joined them for a time and left marks on their hearts. Pikachu's relationships with other Pokémon were mirrors that reflected its own growth. It learned to lead without dominating, to comfort without smothering, to forgive mistakes that were made out of fear. When a teammate faltered, Pikachu's spark was often the first to reach out, gentle, insistent, a reminder that no one had to stand alone. There were moments of doubt that cut deeper than any opponent's attack. Times when Pikachu's spark dimmed with worry, when a friend was hurt, when the path ahead seemed impossible, when Ash's confidence cracked under the weight of failure. In those nights, Pikachu would curl close and let its cheeks glow a steady, warm light. It was not a cure for sorrow, but it was a promise, we will face this together. Those quiet nights taught both of them that courage is not the absence of fear but the choice to move forward despite it. Pikachu's refusal to evolve into Raichu became a quiet, defining act. It was not a dramatic proclamation but a series of small, stubborn choices, to remain as it was, to accept its limits and to find strength within them. When offered the Thunder Stone, Pikachu felt the pull of power and the weight of identity. It chose the latter. That choice was not about rejecting growth, it was about choosing the form of growth that honored who it already was. In that decision, Pikachu taught Ash, and everyone who watched, that evolution is not always the only path to greatness. Their battles against those who would harm others were the moments when Pikachu's spark burned brightest. They faced poachers who saw Pokémon as commodities, corporations that sought to bend nature to profit, and rivals whose ambition had hardened into cruelty. In each confrontation, Pikachu's tactics were a blend of instinct and empathy. It struck to protect, not to punish. It used its electricity to free trapped friends, to short dangerous machines, to light the way for those who had lost hope. Victory often came at a cost: scorched earth that needed tending, friends who needed time to heal, and the slow work of rebuilding trust. But each victory also seeded renewal, new growth, new friendships, new songs sung beneath the trees. Pikachu's personality was a tapestry of contradictions: playful and fierce, stubborn and tender, quick to spark and slow to judge. It loved simple pleasures: the taste of a fresh berry, the thrill of a race through tall grass, the comfort of Ash's laugh. It hated cruelty and waste, and it could not abide seeing a friend in pain. Its humor was small and bright, a mischievous flick of its tail, a cheeky spark when Ash pretended to be brave, a triumphant squeak after a narrow escape. Those moments of lightness kept them both human, kept them both whole. As years passed, their legend grew, but the days remained made of the same small, honest things. They woke to the sound of birds, they argued over the best route to a town, they nursed a wounded Pokémon back to health, they celebrated victories with simple feasts. Pikachu watched Ash grow from a boy with a map into a young man with a map and 1,000 memories. Ash watched Pikachu grow from a stubborn spark into a leader whose courage inspired others. Their bond deepened into something that needed no words: a shared glance that said everything, a touch that steadied, a presence that reassured. There were losses that left hollows in their journey. Friends who moved on, rivals who never learned, places that could not be healed. Each loss was a lesson in humility. Pikachu learned that even the brightest spark could not fix everything, but it could be a beginning. It could warm a seed until it sprouted, it could light a path for those who followed, it could be the ember that started a fire of change. In those quiet reckonings, Pikachu's courage matured into a steady, patient force. In the end, Pikachu's story is not a tale of conquest but of companionship. It is the story of a small creature who chose, again and again, to stand beside others. It is the story of a friendship that taught two beings how to be braver, kinder, and truer than they might have been alone. Pikachu's spark did not simply flash and fade, it threaded through the lives it touched, warming them, guiding them, reminding them that even the smallest light can change the shape of the night. When the road grew quiet and the days of constant travel slowed, Pikachu and Ash would sit beneath a sky full of stars and remember the faces they had met and the places they had saved. Pikachu would rest its head on Ash's knee, cheeks glowing faintly, and the world would feel, for a moment, exactly as it should, full of possibility, held together by small acts of courage, and brightened by a single, enduring spark. Don't forget to subscribe RyvuraStudios.